himself actually, and then we'll move on to Mr. Chris, who will also introduce himself. So, a brief intro on what you do. Ladies first.
All right. Hello, everybody. Good morning. My name is Bolaji Oluwadunsin. I am an Afrocentric accessory designer and founder of Dunsin Craft Collection Limited. Dunsin Craft Collection is an Afrocentric accessory brand that manufactures waterproof and dirt-resistant African-inspired bags and jewelries in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Nice, nice. And Mr. Chris.
Very intimidating.
I know.
Well, mine is not as bogus. My name is Chris Okafu. I am an engineer. I manage a network engineering firm. I think that's good enough.
All right. So today we're discussing a very interesting topic, and it's one that I think will touch on each and every one of you viewers and listeners. If you are a business owner and you are employing or plan to employ staff for your business in Nigeria. Now, what are we talking about today? We're talking about the challenges of employing and retaining staff in Nigeria. Tips for business owners. Now, Oluwadunsin, you are a fashion entrepreneur. I can't go through that long. You're a fashion entrepreneur. Now, very briefly, I want us to talk about. Before we started, you had a few conversations, and you told me that your choice of staffing model is that you strictly employ contract staff. So I want you to tell us why you do that, and how does it serve your purpose?
Okay, so when I started my business in the very early years, I was the one doing everything. I was an undergraduate and I started my business, so I did everything basically. But then as the business grew, I felt the need to employ, but then I had to choose between getting permanent staffs and contract workers. And based on the inflow of orders per week, per month, I realized that I don't need workers to stay in the production factory all the time. So there is a speculated days within a week where they come together to manufacture the bags that will sell for the next 1 month and thereabouts. And also, we receive bulk orders that come once in a while, and they are best utilized during those bulk orders too. I realize they don't necessarily need to sit in the factory when there is no work on ground. So that also helps minimize how much I spend on payment of salaries. So I don't necessarily pay salaries, and I pay them wages. So I pay them per bag that they make. So everything is well calculated and straightforward.
Well, that makes a lot of sense actually. So on the one hand, it keeps your overhead lower. You don't have people that you are just paying and they are sitting down doing nothing, watching African Magic or
Exactly.
browsing Instagram or whatever. That actually makes a lot of sense. Okay, so Mr. Chris, I'm going to ask you the same question. You were very brief on what exactly your company does. So I'm going to give you another opportunity to be a little bit more elaborate, and then also talk to us about your business model. Why do you employ more of? I'm assuming you employ more of permanent staff than you do contract staff, even though it may be a mix of the two. So what has informed that decision?
Well, it's a mix of the two, like you said. There are times you have projects that are major and you don't have the staff strength to be able to execute that, so you have to bring in people who just work on that particular project and they are paid off. There are some you have to keep in-house. For an engineering firm, for example, you give support to certain organizations and you can be called on for support at a very short notice. You could initially want to outsource those kind of support system, but it's not as efficient as you would have preferred it to be. For example, one of your clients says, my network is down in so and so place, and then you call on your contract staff who's a freelance and is presently doing somebody else's job. You have a reputation to protect because part of what you're selling is the fact that you don't have a downtime. And so the only way not to have a downtime is that when something goes up, which happens regularly, electronic devices device will always fail, your car breaks down, and all of those kinds of things. So what bridges the gap is the fact that you step in at almost immediately. Somebody in your office can get to that site in 15 minutes, in 10 minutes, as against when you have to call somebody from a distant location to come and attend to the problem. So it's a mixture. But when you have major projects, yes, your staff gets involved, and then it's bigger than you because you already have a time frame of when you're deploying. Then you can bring in people from outside. So part of the reason is efficiency. Like how one side I buy into the idea as well, but you have to look at your circumstances or your situation. For example, if I was to be making bags, you also have to outsource until it gets to the point where outsourcing is no longer cheap, affordable. That if they have to make every single day because you have regular demand, then it will be cheaper for you to employ them, because what you pay them per bag will no longer be will not be cost conservative anymore, because you now have to pay much more because you're making much more back. But at that stage where you have to make a portion for a period of time, yes, it works. The same thing with our side. If you have limited clients and you can choose to even service them yourself as a person, you can afford to get up on a Sunday and go to the place and attend to it. Yes, you should even run solo. But the moment you begin to get to the point where there's a need for several people having to do several things at about the same time is the reason why we choose to keep. So like you said at the beginning, it's more like a hybrid. There are times there's a need to bring in people who just does and goes, and there are times you really have to keep people to resume with you to be able to do the job.
Oh, good stuff. That's really interesting. So I'm going to continue with you on that topic for a few minutes. Now, you run more of a hybrid system, a hybrid employment system, you know. So my next question would be that what are the unique challenges that you have faced in employing and retaining staff?
Employing sometimes, if you start from employing, it's the biggest of the headache. You put up a vacancy and 60 people apply. First of all, I hate interviews and I really detest it. But if you have to get involved, you have to get involved, because you're trying to employ technical people. You need to know what they know. And so you have 60 people applying for that single role, and the 60 of them cannot do the job. But when he saw the job description, they said yes. Some will come and say they believe they can do it over time. Whose equipment are you going to use as training school to damage and be able to learn? Because some of these equipments can be very expensive. And so you're hoping to learn on my devices and mess up my things or mess up my reputation for that. So the number one problem is recruitment. To arrive at the point of employing the person that can do your job is a major challenge. So you keep interfacing with people. Like recently we had this interview, and one of the people that came in, can you do this? He said no. Can you do this? He said no. Can you do this? He said no. How skilled are you in this? No. But that's a person.
So what did he come for?
Did you see the requirement? He said yes. So why did you come? He said, I believe that I can do it with faith. You know, I didn't know what to tell him. But I just said, you know what, if you can't meet up with all this thing, can you get up now and save the other people their time? Now, recruitment can be a major headache. Now, the biggest is retaining. People work in your place for a period of time, and they acquire certain skills in the course of them being there. They were skilled before they arrived there, but because of the kind of work you also do, they acquire certain level of skills, and then they arrive at that point where they are at this level of skill set, and they become a better demand elsewhere. So they migrate, and a lot of times they migrate very poorly. Engineers are one of the people that has the poorest human relations I know. They want to move, they don't move normally. They just get paid yesterday night and don't show up this morning. Or they just realize that they get an offer somewhere bigger, and they just say, you know what, to hell with whatever is the balance there, I'm gone. And no matter what documentation you have when they were recruiting, that you cannot go at certain times, you have to do this, if you leave you're going to do this, you're going to go after them with this, it doesn't work. Because you look at the effort it takes to follow up some of all these things you have put in place in documentation that they signed, that if you leave without proper this, you're going to do this. It costs much more to pursue them, even though sometimes you try to make a scapegoat. Those scapegoat to who? Because the people you are trying to make scapegoat to are also gone. So a lot of times the retainingship is issue, because there is always a better place. No matter where you're working, name the biggest telecom organization, there's always another better one. So there's always, look at even what is happening with the banking industry recently, where a good number of them are migrating. Despite the thing in the banking system, apart from the managerial staff, the IT guys are the better paid than people who do the real physical banking. Yet they still move away in droves. So you now ask yourself, what do they really want? Is it better pay, better environment, or they just want to explore? A lot of times it's just to explore. Let me be in another environment and see what they are doing. It's just the excitement of doing different things from different places. So retaining them has been a challenge. So what you do is that at every point in time you're just looking out. And sometimes some people teach you all these other things about leadership, speaking with them, ensuring that a part of the dream. This is not America. In America, you work in...
So you're saying that doesn't work here?
It doesn't. In America, you work in an organization where maybe not America, maybe in civilized world, they can even give you a share ratio in the company to say you own this amount of shares in the company as you work. I know that in companies, even in Nigeria, you rise to a point where you begin to have certain level of shares, but these guys don't value